everyone, and welcome to Fascism on Film. I'm James Kent. I am a film enthusiast and a writer for the Mountain Times in Killington, Vermont. It's a newspaper. And also, I host a different podcast called Stuff We've Seen with my co-host here, Teal Minton.
Hi, how's it going? We do Stuff We've Seen, which is a podcast about film. I am also a writer and writing teacher and a film fan like you.
I'm a fan of nothing else more than fascism on film. No, but I think it's a necessary topic, and we watched some movies, so we're going to talk about them. And today, this is a biggie, all right? And we could probably talk several hours on this film, but we keep it to a half hour, and that is the 1915. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's 1915,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
Silent. Classic American cinema, D.W. Griffith. They always call him the father of cinema, I guess. I don't know.
Or grandfather, or racist
your
uncle.
Racist grandfather of cinema. D.W. Griffith's Birth of a Nation. And it's a film that I feel like probably audiences today, by and large, haven't seen. But it's a film that, especially if you went to film school at any point in time, you can't help but hearing about at some point.
Absolutely. I first heard about it, in high school when I was starting to get into film history, and it just kept popping up. D.W. Griffith's Birth of a Nation invented this and this and this and this, and has been the most influential film in the history of cinematic grammar and language. People would say, oh, well, it kind of, doesn't it portray the Klan in a positive light? But, I never sat down and watched all 3 hours of it to really find out. So it was studied without us really watching it. I think Spike Lee is somebody who's really, I think, been quite articulate about how awful this film is. He said that he was shown it at NYU Film School without any historical context whatsoever. Just here's a film that is great as film. And again, I think that we need to locate it in history before we look at it directly, because it is. It's a horrible thing in its own right, but it's also important where it is in film history, where it is in the history of the country. I mean, this thing was the first blockbuster movie.
There's a lot to unpack here. Like you, I first heard about it being a film fan at some point between the age of 10 and 18. I had heard about this film, but I'd heard about, there's this silent movie that's considered the greatest film of all time, right? And you hear something like that, and you're a film enthusiast, you're kind of curious. Like, what? Greatest film of all time? What could possibly be? And of course, knowing that any silent film is 3 hours, that's like already torture sounding to me. I'm not a big silent movie fan. I'm sorry. I feel like there's this misnomer that you have to be this silent film lover if you're going to be a lover of movies, and I don't necessarily feel that way.
You're not big on silent film.
I mean, I've seen those, but you know me. I've seen some because they've shown up on lists, and I checked them out, and some of them I do enjoy, but it's not my favorite genre because thankfully cinema, moved on. But then, like you said, I went to NYU and you went to NYU, and there was a class where they were talking about directing and editing. We watched a couple of clips. And now I want to tell you that back in my day, I didn't even know, I knew it was about the Civil War or something.
Yeah.
I didn't know even the Klan angle. That wasn't like the lead story then.
No, it was not the lead story.
All I got, and I went there several years after Spike Lee, but we got this is dated and there's some racist stuff. And of course, they weren't going to really show any of that stuff to us.
Right.
But that, D.W. Griffith invented all of these amazing editing techniques and moving the camera and stuff that hadn't been thought of, yada, yada, yada. I watched the clips they gave me, and then it was probably not, and I didn't think anything much of it, quite honestly. And then it wasn't until many years later that I started to get some documentaries of what was really this film was about.
Right.
And then it was really only a couple of years ago where I sat down as part of this sort of overarching project of Teal and I to watch this thing. and I've had to watch it twice. I don't know if I'll ever watch it a third time, but the first was to just go in for the experience of this movie, and then a second time to really go by frame and take notes on it. And anything that I had heard about this movie, it didn't prepare me for the level. Like it's just like somebody skipped over just how egregious and insanely awful and disgusting this movie is in its portrayal of of how they portrayed Black people and this idea. I mean, when you hear the word white supremacist, that sounds like a scary thing, but if we break it down to what white supremacy is, this film is a blueprint for it. It basically says the white man, and I'm talking man, mind you, like it's a very
absolutely. And, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on with gender politics in this movie.
Yeah, it's the white man is God's chosen and supreme, and he is meant to rule and lord over women and the Black man, as they say in this movie. Of course, they use other terms in this film, but the portrayal of this movie is done in a way. When we talk about propaganda, it is a sold version. D.W. Griffith was gobsmacked that anybody would have a problem with this movie.
Yeah.
He didn't see any of the racism in this film.
No.
And it's shocking when you watch this that anybody would not.
I was introduced this. It's a film that happens to be kind of racist, but it's the other way around. This is a racist propaganda, white supremacist propaganda film that then also maybe did some interesting things cinematically. But first and foremost, particularly the last hour and a half, right? After the Civil War ends, then it becomes this period of Reconstruction in the South, at which the Black South rises up to crush the white South, and the white South has to fight back. And through the glorious Ku Klux Klan, they manage to rebirth. I mean, this is why it's called Birth of a Nation. Is the idea is that America didn't really exist as a union until the Klan came in, and that gave us this great country. Was the Klan and and Lincoln and the Klan somehow working together? It's really kind of weird once you get into it.
It's selling this idea the South's cause was just.
Yes.
And that, in a way, it's not going to, Lincoln was a revered character by this point in history when the movie was made. Basically, it was kind of saying that Lincoln's assassination was a good thing because it allowed us to stop Black people from basically, like in this movie's narrative, that Black people would have destroyed the white man, that they were these savage beasts that we had been taming, and that once they were given freedom, they didn't know what to do with it, and they use all of these racist tropes. But you say the second half of the film, but it starts out like boom from the first title card. This movie.
Oh no, I'm not. It's totally racist in the first half. It's just we don't get into the celebrating the Klan and the violence and the blood rights and.
I mean, this whole movie is stocked with the exception of a couple of here and there characters. All the Black people in the movie are played by white people in blackface.
Yes.
It's horrific.
Yeah, it's absolutely horrific, and it's just a whole nother level of erasure. And the other thing I sort of want to say is that there's like this creation myth right here, and we talked about this before, but this palingenetic nationalism, ultranationalism, there is a rebirth story here, sort of a theatrical spectacle through ritualized violence that gives us this rebirth as a new country, and that's only possible through subjugating Black people and seeing white people as the victims of Black freedom, essentially. Because Black freedom in the film, in large part, is sexual freedom and political, of course. But things like, Black people are going to vote. Well, we can't let that happen. We've got to get the Klan in there to disrupt that.
There's this narrative that comes in that the most dangerous thing, it sold this fiction that the Black man is going to steal the white women and they're going to produce babies that are mixed, and that is going to further erode white purity. And that's where, watching this whole film, I'm struck by just how fascist this movie is and how it's almost a blueprint for what Germany would then later do, because America had already shown the way of how you take a race and that you isolate, you punish, you create laws to keep them down, and that you can also justifiably murder another race. And as long as you've put the laws in place. And so Germany's view was, well, they can do it over there in that crazy America. We can do it here. We just have to put laws in place.
I think it's important to point out that this film had a real impact on the history of racism in this country. The Klan had largely died out, but had a massive resurgence because of this movie. And in a way, this movie created, I was talking about like black men as sexual threats. This movie created that image of the black man as a sexual threat to the suffering white female victim. And that whole dynamic has been with us since then. And it probably existed before that, but this film put it into the popular imagination and made it part of our collective memory of Reconstruction.
The Birth of a Nation was based on this book and then became a play called The Klansman. And the author of The Klansman was a good friend and school buddy of the president, Woodrow Wilson.
Yes.
And when the movie had its premiere in Los Angeles, it was called The Klansman.
Yes.
But they recognized that the Klan was still synonymous with terrible acts against black people. So for marketing purposes, it was quickly changed for other locations to Birth of a Nation. So by the time they played the movie at the White House, the first film ever shown at the White House, it was called Birth of a Nation. Woodrow Wilson loved it. He is chiefly responsible for creating of the separation that didn't exist in the federal government.
He segregated the federal government, basically. After Reconstruction, there was more integration in federal workers, and he segregated it, put up partitions. And
well, while there was segregation happening due to a Supreme Court decision in the late 1800s, in the South, that sort of gave the blueprint for them to start segregating. The North wasn't. But after the Klansman / Birth of a Nation and Woodrow Wilson started to segregate the federal government, it seeped in up north and other places. And that's when one documentary that I watched where a guy who had lived a very relatively comfortable coexistence in Boston, it suddenly started to change. And it just shows you rapidly how an administration can change things, right?
Yeah, very quickly.
So this film was a worldwide sensation. And so it would be naive to think that the Nazis hadn't seen this film as they were forming.
Well, yeah, I mean, it made, in today's dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars. And it was the first movie to play on the $2 screens. Most movies were at the Nickelodeon, and they were nickel for, a 10-minute film or something. But this played in the $2 theaters. It had a full orchestra, not just a piano player, and it packed the houses.
You watch this film, which we do not recommend, but if you did, you would be very hard-pressed to not be shocked at almost every ounce of this film. And if you aren't shocked, then you got to start wondering about yourself a little bit. But if you keep in mind that audiences in America, and there were some movements to try to ban it from areas.
There definitely were. Yeah, there was resistance to it.
But the idea that people, by and large, watched this and didn't see any problem.
No, it was like going to see Mission Impossible. Right?
It's so crazy.
It's this thrilling action film with stunts and but it happens to be a white supremacist propaganda film filled with just the most vile stereotypes. And it's just disgusting, this movie. And I didn't know how disgusting it was based on the place that it holds in our culture.
I watched it first and had to tell you, and I'm like, you got to prepare yourself because I guarantee you're not ready. You think you know what it is until you watch it, and you're going to actually feel your jaw dropping.
Yeah, because it's not just like there's a little sequence. I had always sort of thought this was a movie that sort of covered a bunch of historical stuff in America, and the Klan was just one of the things it covered. But no, it's actually a movie just about the Klan.
Essentially, it's about the birth of the Klan.
And therefore the nation.
And it's this one guy, this one hero's journey, right, into like how he was called into action to right the wrongs of the white man.
Yes.
And again, I don't even think we have to really talk about the plot points, because I feel when it hit 100 years, there was some pieces like, kind of like, oh, this movie's 100 years old now. And they, of course, reached out to various critics. And I still feel like people who found themselves as like esteemed critics had a hard time really bashing this movie. The only person, and you mentioned him right at the top, the only person who's really given this film the true due is Spike Lee. He saw this film for what it was, and he went to film school at a time where, again, he's a black voice going, you don't see a problem with this?
Yeah.
And that was the thing, is literally the film teacher didn't recognize that there was a black filmmaker in training here, and that maybe he'd have a problem with this movie. And that's just shocking, the level of like whiteness, right?
And it's not like, oh, I guess I was just being a little insensitive. I didn't really see that or didn't know. No. This film over and over and over again just says this is pure evil racism, and there's no way to avoid it. There's no way to diminish it or write it off or say it's just a part of it. That is the entire purpose of this film, is white supremacist propaganda.
It's so funny. D.W. Griffith, he was so shocked at the negative reaction that this film got. And clearly didn't understand, so much so that his next film, which is also regarded as this masterpiece, and I've seen it and I do not like it at all, is called Intolerance. And the whole message of this is that people were intolerant of his viewpoints, and that this intolerant society it almost sounds like the stuff that you hear today from the right and like a Fox News and other channels is with like a DEI argument, and that the idea that that's racist, and so saying that if you have a problem with white supremacy, you're the problem. It's like basically what intolerance is in many ways. It's such a bizarre film knowing that history. But my big problem is that when you see this film, it is so ugly and awful and fascist. This is the thing I don't hear anybody talking about, and maybe we're going to be the first people to really label it, but I feel like this is a fascist movie, and that any sort of attributes to D.W. Griffith as being some kind of father of American cinema and all his techniques, I feel like those are all invalidated, that this guy, big deal. Somebody else would have come up with these techniques. Yeah. That's my whole feeling. I feel like this guy is not anything great, and I dismiss everything because he put something so damaging out into the world that I don't forgive him. And so I dismiss everything he ever did.
I agree. So just on that, since, this is a film show, one of the things that he developed is called parallel montage, which is, we talk about as cross-cutting, or it's when you have two different actions going on and you cut back and forth between them and they're going to meet at some point.
Which like would never, ever happen in cinema if it wasn't for this guy. See what I'm saying? Eventually it would have.
But here's the interesting thing. Sergei Eisenstein criticized Griffith because he said that the parallel montage sets up a binary moral narrative and it's inherently fascistic compared to what Eisenstein doing is dynamic montage, where there's space for contradiction and critique. And so actually Eisenstein is arguing that some of these aesthetic choices actually are kind of fascistic and create a simplified moral.
The term fascism didn't exist then. Right. And again,
soon after.
Yeah, we'll get into Italy soon on our podcast. But I will argue that every aspect of this movie, in a sense, is fascist.
Do you want to play a little game with me?
I'll play a game on the show? I'd love to. Sure.
Okay. This is called Is It Fascist?
Oh, okay.
And I'm going to tell you some sort of tenets of fascism, and you can tell me whether the film fits into this or not.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm going with Umberto Eco's 14 Points of Fascism.
Great. So is this like a 14-point game?
Yep, 14-point game.
All right. Hit me up.
Point number 1, the cult of tradition.
Well, the film does go into a lot of Southern traditions, right? I mean, that's the whole thing in the first there's these two families. One's a little bit more north, one's a bit south and friendly. And the idea that, like, the Civil War comes along and ruins this great Southern tradition. And they show the slaves in the field and that everybody's by the way, that's another fantasy that they put in there, that the slaves were very happy-go-lucky to be out in the field. So the film does set up a narrative that there was this charming way of life in the South.
Exactly. Yeah, the charming way of life. And even the Klan is sort of like a lost order that is being brought back.
Yeah, and we'll get into that because I'm guessing that there's going to be some stuff that's in this movie that comes up in these other points, and I'm going to save those for when that is.
I think there is. Okay, next, number 2, the rejection of modernism.
Well, I guess you could say that the whole point of when the Civil War comes to an end, right?
Yes.
The black people have gotten new freedoms, and this modern idea that black people would get to vote and make laws and be part of the Congress and possibly be able to rule over the white men. That's modernism that we don't want. we need to harken it back. Okay.
Okay, number 3, the cult of action for action's sake.
Well, I mean, there is a part of the movie late when they have to go save the family that's being kept by the black people in the, I'm thinking about, again, I don't remember the names of the people, but they're in that hut. And of course, the Klan is going marching on horseback to Ride of the Valkyries. Germanic and every sense. So, action for action, they're building this excitement crescendo to save the day.
Yes, and they're going outside the law. It's just action without deliberation, and which the law would bring deliberation.
Oh no, that's the whole thing. Is the Klan here? Is the law that's not being enforced? They're the people that are sorely missed, and you can see without the Klan what's going to happen in America.
Okay, number 4, disagreement is treason.
Okay, let me think. Again, it's been a bit since I've seen this movie. Disagree.
Okay, there is a character who is kind of an abolitionist.
Yeah, but he's he's portrayed as a villain, right?
That's my point.
Yeah. Well, I'm not. You're gonna have to give me that one. I mean, I know it's there, but let's talk about that for a second. I guess I fail on this one. This is the one where
No, just the idea that white people who not down with the Klan are betrayers of white civilization.
Right.
Right, and so that's the treason. It's treason against white civilization if you don't support the Klan. Yeah,
and isn't the abolitionist tied into the biracial character who then also preys upon the one girl and that whole idea that if you're a mixed race, you're going to be an evil predator?
Yes.
And I'm not talking about the other, the actual black character played by a white guy in blackface who attempts to rape somebody who, to save her own purity, she'd rather jump off a cliff and die.
Yeah, and then, something was actually cut out of the film by the censors, which was the scene where they castrate that guy.
Are you joking?
I'm not joking.
Oh, my God. I don't think I know that.
Yeah.
Wow. Hopefully people you're listening, you're like, what the frick is this movie? It's terrible. Go
on. Number 5, this one's pretty easy. Fear of difference.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's like the whole,
we don't even need to
movie. Yes.
We don't even need to say that one. Number 6, appeal to a frustrated middle class.
Well, they don't really get into to classes so much.
They do, though, because the white middle class, yes, they do definitely look at the.
I got the answer. You asked the game question. I got the answer.
Yeah.
Here's an example. You have after the Civil War, so you see these Confederate soldiers, right, and they're being degraded and belittled by black Union soldiers.
Exactly.
Right.
And we've talked about sort of the fertile ground for fascism, where both psychologically and practically, and it usually comes after some kind of economic collapse or disillusionment, ideological breakdown, and people are looking for something to restore their way of life. And that's exactly it. That middle class resentment and anger towards losing their privilege. And so they want to restore that.
Well, they also lost their workers. And now,
Yes.
and so
Yes.
now, this whole feeling of like we've lost the battle, and we feel this like sense of shame. And again, you can see a lot of parallels to the conditions of what was going on in Germany in the 1920s after World
Exactly.
War I, where
Yeah.
they felt like they were winning, but then they were forced to surrender. And that's how a lot of the people in the South felt, because I think there was this feeling like that they were going to be the winners.
Yeah, and I think that in like economic terms, very similar what was going on in Weimar Germany and what's going on in the postbellum South in terms of sort of the collapse of the economy. And okay, number 7.
Okay.
Obsession with a plot or conspiracy.
Well, that's this film again, is conspiracy that somehow the North is going to have these freed black people lord over the South. That was like this weird conspiracy going on, and that the abolition, like now, like they were going to have no say in the government.
Exactly. And there's this idea, I think there's a title card that even says like the North would put the white South under the heel of the black South.
Yeah. I mean, it's really fascinating that this is now being sold as a truth.
Yes.
And that's, again, remember the power of this film medium, which was so new. And so really what D.W. Griffith was, he wasn't the father of cinema. He was the father of propaganda cinema.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, number 8.
Okay.
The enemy is both strong and weak.
I mean, that kind of applies, because they were saying that, they're worried about black men raping their women.
Right. But also they're so inept that they can't govern.
That's right.
They're both strong and weak at the same time. Absolutely.
Man, this movie's hitting it out of the park on this game.
Well, I told you, right? We're not just casually calling this fascist. This is pretty fascist.
All right.
Okay, let's see. Pacifism is trafficking with the enemy.
Define that a little bit better.
Okay, so basically the idea is that this goes back to the action for the sake of action thing, right? That vigilante justice and violence is the only effective solution. And so pacifism, it's sort of like you're either with us or against us.
I got it. So let's take, I think the character's Gus.
Yes.
And he is the black man, played by a white man.
Yep.
In very theatrical, let's just say, ways. And this idea that he's lusting after this white woman. He chases after her, presumably, I guess he's going to rape her, and then she jumps off cliff and dies. The thought here is that we need to take the law in our own hands, because we can't trust the government, the North. They're not going to do anything about this guy because he's their guy. And so we, as Southern gentlemen, we must protect the sanctity of our women.
Yeah.
So we must go. Because the weirdest thing is there's no proof. Nobody sees him chasing her. The hero of the story sees her screaming about something, but then somehow there's this leap that it's got to be this guy has done something. Maybe he murdered her. They didn't see him try to rape her, and so somehow he's got to face Klan justice.
Yeah. Okay. Number 10.
Okay.
Contempt for the weak. Pretty simple here is, again, the enemy is strong and weak, right? So this is looking at the weak side of that.
Well, I think it's an entire film's portrayal. The way they portray black people in this film, they do portray them mostly as weak, as again, that they need white people to guide them along. And just in the characterizations, they show them. I mean, you know, when we talk about these awful tropes of like that they showed in films of black people eating watermelons or shuffling and dancing, this movie's got it all. It shows all this. There's a scene where they're celebrating, dancing, and it's showing that these people are just like simple characters that white people need to like take care of.
I really think this movie created a lot of the racist stereotypes and tropes that are still around.
Just reinforced it on a whole nother level and sold it to America.
Yeah.
Again, I'm telling you, this movie is, out of all the movies I've ever seen in my life, I think the most angered I've ever been with a movie is this film. And I think I'm angered because all these years I feel like I was lied to about just how bad this film is, how evil it is. And people like will somehow find ways to kind of make it seem like it's not that terrible, or that, this is the way it was back then. Like, no, that's not an excuse.
Right.
It's not, look, today is not an excuse for the stuff that's going on now. It's not an excuse then. So continue with the game. I want to see if it hits all 14 points. And guess what? I think it is.
Oh yeah, we're doing good so far. Okay, everyone is educated to become a hero. So this is sort of this idea in fascism that of heroism, and again through action, taking action. So
what year did Joseph Campbell die?
I'm not sure exactly.
Because, like, this guy would have loved this movie. It's like the hero's journey. It's all about the rise to heroism. It's like, it really is. It's a crescendo. I mean, this movie is almost religious fervor and a crescendo to turning this guy into the ultimate hero, which was what's even more shocking is that journey lands him as the Klan.
Yes. Yeah, because the Klan is like ordinary people transformed into warriors in this mythic way that's like, they draw from revelations. It's religious. It's got this history, the old Scottish Highlands or whatever, they say.
Throughout the years, it always felt like, boy, what cowards. They hide behind these masks, right? These outfits.
Yeah.
But here, it's almost like this revelry, like it's almost like his superhero costume.
Absolutely. This is a superhero origin story about the Klan.
There's like literally a buildup to the moment. Like it's done with music. It's done with montage and imagery of this guy almost going to the loftiest perch and being like almost a message from heaven itself.
Yes, absolutely. Like Eisenstein said, is baked into the aesthetics of the movie. You can't separate out the filmmaking techniques from what's done. Like we keep coming back to that attempted rape scene where she's being chased, cutting back and forth between them. I watched that sequence again recently, and it's kind of exciting in terms of the editing and the pacing of how it builds up this this event to then her jumping off the cliff. It's sort of in this idealized noble sacrifice. And in fact, the title card is basically like, she knows she's going to a better place.
And see, that, by the way, also fits in. I don't know if we're going to save it for one of the last tenets here, but like, the noble death, right?
Yes. Okay, number 12. This one's going to be tough, I think.
Oh, try me.
I'm joking. Okay, number 12, machismo and weaponized sexuality.
Oh, well, I mean, we've already, I don't even know if we have to discuss it. It's all in there. Weaponized sexuality. I mean, that's like a whole crux of the movie. And then also, the guy, they build this guy up, the main guy who's supposed to be the hero.
Yeah.
They build him up as the ultimate man in a sense.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, so we got that one. Don't worry.
Yeah, and we've got the women as passive symbols.
And they're even like, doesn't there like a whole scene where they're building? They're like, they're getting down, making all the robes so that they can be building up an army, basically.
Oh yeah. So I think 400,000 Klan robes were sewn by Southern women in secret. Okay, number 13, selective populism, which means essentially that it's all about the people, but the people is defined very narrowly.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a cause that, again, it's this whole cause of like they basically kind of took all of the South, right? And the Klan represents the South and the rising and the building of this nation.
Yeah. And when we're saying we're doing this for the people, what we're talking about is white men are the people.
Yes.
And so it's the right people. That's what selective populism is.
Yeah, well, we hear that now. I mean, I'm going to not mention any names. When you hear like, America has spoken.
Yeah.
America wanted this, right? So like suddenly like it incorporates everybody, or if you're not the right American that they're talking about. So they're speaking to an America that if you're agreeing with this, that's who's spoken. Never mind that millions did not speak for this.
So yeah, selective populism. And we hear this too in rhetoric, like real Americans want this.
Yeah.
And that real Americans makes it a slightly narrower definition. So selective populism. Okay, number 14. We're doing great so far.
Okay, this is it. This is the last one, right?
Yep, that's the last one.
So now wait a minute. If it only gets 13 or 14, can it still be considered fascist?
Yes.
Okay.
I think, I mean, maybe we have to use the term proto-fascist.
That's what I think of it as. It's a proto-fascist film. Yes.
Yes. Okay. So number 14, Newspeak.
Newspeak.
Yeah, which is basically just applying. I'm going to give you a quote from the film that I think sums this up pretty well. Okay, here's the quote from a title card. The bringing of the African to America planted the first seed of disunion.
Yep.
So it's using language to speak in sort of grand, mythic terms, replaces complexity with moral absolutes, all that kind of stuff.
I don't have the title cards with me because, boy, I got to tell you, it's like the thing is, right, the visuals on screen are so racist, but man, these title cards in between, like the stuff that's written on them is like horrifying. But there's a stuff at the end that really ties this message in as a holy message. And it really starts doing some Bible quotes and stuff.
Yes.
And then there's another thing that gives it an endorsement because the guy who wrote it was good friends with Woodrow Wilson. The film several times from the guy Dixon, right? That's the guy who wrote the script.
Thomas Dixon.
He uses quotes from Woodrow Wilson in the film. And so what that does is it creates this legitimacy as if saying the president of the United States approves this message, even before the president even saw the movie, but it does send that message.
I think Wilson said it was history writ with lightning or something.
Yes.
And that became like the tagline on the poster.
Yeah. And again, that's what basically it's saying, that this is the history.
Yeah.
You know, again, maybe audiences weren't so savvy, but now I'm not so sure because, again, you would like to think that based on the last, 8 years, that people would have been smart enough to know what they were going to be getting if they made certain voting decisions, and they still went. So, like, I don't know how sophisticated people are today.
You know, that's one of these things with these old films. People are like, well, it's a product of its time. It was kind of racist. No, this was actually racist for its time. People protested this movie. There was a lot of critique about it being racist. But I think your average moviegoer who was paying their $2 and seeing this with a full orchestra, it hadn't really seen a lot of movies, hadn't really seen a lot of images. To see this and believe it in a way, that's different than how we view movies now. We're much more suspect, but to see this and be like, oh, they're actually, because the battle scenes are absolutely astounding, the scale of some of this stuff. And so it does feel like a recreation of history. And so it gives that sort of, that air of authority almost to the audience. So I can see people not being as critical of it then as they are now, just because people weren't as sophisticated in how they understood visual language.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is fair, but, you know, it's funny, again, there's another film that's a silent film, and again, critics think of it, regard it sometimes as like one of the top 100 movies of all time. So, of course, I watched it, and I had a great big problem with it because I felt it was very racist. And I couldn't look past it. And that's this Buster Keaton movie called The General.
Yeah, which is also about Confederates. And I would agree with you on that.
But it's also told from the point of view he's a Confederate.
Yes.
And
yes.
So, but here's the thing. This is what's so fascinating. And it shows you kind of the legend of this movie, Birth of a Nation, is that Buster Keaton was called to the mat a little bit on this film. Because he put this film, he's like a protagonist who's also not, he's not on the winning side, but it's treated like that the Confederates were. And basically, you couldn't have a movie play in the South where the Confederates weren't the heroes.
Yes, absolutely.
And the reason for that is because they were sold and they were building this myth that Birth of a Nation espouses that they were wronged, that they had a just cause.
The just cause of the myth of the South. And, but I think that the North has some...
But that's the second part, right, is that so the South became more important because there was this attitude of racism that's still in the North, that they would accept that. So the idea was that if you were on the Union side, one half of the country wouldn't accept it at all. But as long as you were on the Confederate side, the South would accept it and the North would be okay with it too.
Yeah, because the North was basically like, let's let bygones be bygones and just, move on from this.
We are focused on this podcast about fascism, and we won't be getting into just how racist America and American cinema is. There might be pockets of it, and that's why we probably won't be touching a movie like Gone with the Wind, which is incredibly racist too. But it just happens that this one film isn't just racist. It is really, we discovered 14 tenets of fascism. It's hit every one of them. So
it's hit every one. Yeah. And so really, I think it's fair to call this a fascist film. film, and I think it's also fair to say this film should not be watched. I feel like it should just be buried in history, and it really only has, I think, scholarly interest. There's nothing to learn about filmmaking from watching this film, despite what the film schools may have thought 30 years ago, but there's nothing to learn about filmmaking from it. It is really just putting yourself through the most vile, racist 3 hours of your life, and I don't recommend anyone do that.
Yeah, I would think that the only reason it should be taught in film school if you were doing a course to talk about racism in film.
Absolutely. Yeah. But even then, yeah, exactly. If you're doing depictions of African Americans in film history, then yes, I think that this it fits into your scholarly interest. But outside of that, for the average viewer, I just think there's really no point in putting yourself through this.
Look, this episode may have gone a little bit longer, but hey, look, we control how long an episode is, and and it's a long movie, so there. So coming up next, what do we got for us on our next episode? We're going to stay with America, right?
Yeah, well, on our next episode, we're looking at 2 films that are sort of about the dangers of getting caught up in fascism. One is Confessions of a Nazi Spy, which is sort of what its title implies, and the other is Black Legion, with Humphrey Bogart getting caught up in sort of a Klan-adjacent type group. Both were made sort of to warn us about the dangers of falling into fascism.
Yeah, because they were at a time where fascism was on the rise in Europe, and people could see that was a possibility that it could go that way in America, and so there was a big concern. And I'm excited to talk about the Humphrey Bogart movie, Black Legion, because I think he's really good in that movie.
Yes, I totally agree, yeah.
What have we learned here, people?
Well, we've learned that fascism has been around for a while, that it's tightly tied to racism, and that we have these in America. We do have this fascist mythology that it's different now. We do thankfully most people see this differently now, but we have this thing that created a lot of racism and like I said, revitalized the Klan just because of this movie, and it really had an impact on race in America.
Well, but I want to leave you with one thought, and I'm going to leave it with you, Teal, but also you who's listening, because this isn't like a conspiracy theory or anything. No, we are living in a time right now where a current administration is saying that multiculturalism is bad.
Yes,
it is not right, and we're going to do something about it. And so when they're outwardly just saying it out loud, they're not hiding this. What have you learned today, and what can you apply to basically, do we want to use can we apply the 14 tenets to today's administration? I'm saying that if you took me through that test, but I can't because it's not a movie, but if you took me through that test, I think I would find a lot of the same points.
You would find a lot of the same points, yeah.
So that is really the point of this episode.
Well, the point of this is to help us. I think the point of the whole show is to help us identify these fascist elements in our society and in ourselves.
And so we have to, instead of wondering, are we fascist? Maybe we start to learn and then go, okay, what are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
Anyways, that's not for us to decide, but we will be back with another episode, and the name of the show is Fascism on Film, and you can find us at fascismonfilm.com and on Apple Podcasts and other podcasts. So please stay tuned. Keep going. We're going to do a season of episodes here. I don't know how long that season is at this point. And then, we'll take a pause. We'll kind of regroup, and then, we'll do another season.
And we'll just keep going. We have over 200 films to potentially talk about. So we'll see how we do. But thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for listening, as long as the man lets us continue. All right, bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.